Okay, so evidently we're having some technical trouble. So just give me 1 second here while I get this. I want to make sure I've got all the pieces cleaned up. I apologize. Either this is going out twice, or this is working because now I'm doing it for real. Okay. Hello and welcome. Whether you consider yourself a solopreneur, entrepreneur, organizer, small business, when the tools and the applications that you use are not available, that can be a big deal. So we're going to talk tech about some backup plans, some alternatives, and some ways to prepare for when these things happen. Let's get started.
So watch our channel, come and see and laugh and learn, and you'll agree you'll make your tech life easier with your tech coach.
All right, so I'm really hoping this is going out twice and not just the first time here, but okay, we're going to roll with this. So however you consider yourself, whether you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, organizer, small business, or even in life, right? The tools and the applications that we depend on to run things, to stay, in contact with our groups and our audience, and, also just to get things done, are a big deal. Like we rely on them, we need them. And so when we lose access to them, that's a problem. And we need to have some backup plans, some alternatives ready, just in case this is going to happen. We want to make sure that everything is covered, because in an emergency situation, that's not the time to prepare for the emergency. You want to already be prepared. So how do you do this? What are we going to do? So let's first start off with the basics of life, and why might this happen? So this could happen because of political nonsense. Let's be real. That is definitely a part of the scenario, but it is not the only thing that can cause this, right? Sometimes the provider of the tool goes out of business. They just disappear overnight. It has happened, and it will happen again. Sometimes the provider is bought and shut down by the new owner. Now that can happen immediately, that can happen over time, because either that's why they bought it, was because they bought and wanted to throw away the competition, or they bought them because there were some features that they wanted to cherry pick and then they throw out the rest. So definitely a scenario. There's also just random weather kind of things, right? So sometimes a storm, a hurricane or whatever, will knock out, their access or their servers for a while. And, snowstorms can do this, ice storms can do this. There's a lot of different things that can cause this. Sometimes it's a man-made issue, right? Something, there's some ship out at sea and it cuts the cable to the internet, or locally, right? Somebody's digging to do some construction work and they cut a cable. So these are all things that can cause these kinds of problems. Power outages can cause it. There's many, many factors to this. And we can't control this, but we can prepare. We can have backup plans in place so that if this happens, when this happens, it doesn't have to be devastating. And instead of wasting your time and energy on panicking and trying to find solutions, you can just turn to your backup plans that you have in place and start to implement those to try to get things rolling again for yourself. So, for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Kathleen. I'm here as your tech coach. Short version of the story is technology is my day gig. It's also my hobby. So I stay on top of these kinds of things just naturally. So my friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers tend to come to me when they have problems or if they're trying to prepare for things. But I know not everybody has somebody like that. So hello, that's why we're here every week. I'm here Fridays, 8 p.m.-ish Eastern time, and happy to help as much as I can. Feel free to reach out. All right, so let's keep talking about this because this is big stuff. So we're going to start off with the basics, right? And then we are going to branch out from there. Sorry, I just want to get ready to show you some stuff. We're going to branch out from there, and go into more, I hate to use the word complex, but they are more complex options, right? So the basic starting point for all this kind of stuff is and always will be alternatives, right? So start by making sure that you always download your files on a regular basis. So I'm going to use Canva as an example. I'm not saying anything's going to happen to Canva, okay? I'm just using them as an example because a lot of people know them. So you're using Canva to do your social media art. Maybe you're doing documents in there. Maybe you're doing videos, whatever. However much or little you're using a tool like that, you start to build up a lot of resources in there. You're also uploading things like your logo and other source files. Make sure it's fine. Like, absolutely, that's the whole point of having these tools. They're great and they're useful, but also make sure that you are on a regular basis backing up all those files. So the source files that you're loading up there, make sure you've got them someplace else. The things that you create in that tool, make sure you download them on a regular basis. Now, you can choose to do that every time you create something. You can choose to do it once a month, a couple times a year, whatever works best for your workflow. But do make sure that you are backing those things up, because if that tool goes away, so does your stuff. And you don't want to have to recreate a day's worth, 6 months worth, several years worth of assets because it went away. So please, please, please back up, and go check out my video about just general backups and backing up your backups and all that kind of good stuff. But make sure you've got all that stuff out of the online services, offline, and safely available to you someplace else. The next step of this Plan A level is to research and identify alternatives that offer the same or close features, right? So again, none of us are using all the functionality in a tool. All right, maybe all's big. Most of us are not using all of the functionality, right? It tends to be 10 to 20, maybe 30% is the industry standard. For everything else, like the thing is we all use a different percentage, right? So I'm using these 5 things, you're using these 2 things, and maybe there's 3 things that are overlapping. So you want to focus and identify on what it is that you're using that tool. What is crucial for you in this tool? What is it that's benefiting you, that's making your life easier, making your job easier, making it so that your business keeps running? Identify those things and then go look for alternatives. So then, now I'm going to give you some examples. I'm not saying that these are the only examples, or the only options. These are just ideas to get things flowing in the brain there. So the first one is let's say CapCut recently went away. It's back now, but of course that could change again tomorrow. So if you're a fan of CapCut, and I love it. So something else that might be useful for that is something like Descript or Filmora, because those are also editing tools. You can do captions, you can, use special effects. They have templates, all that kind of stuff. Not saying they're the only ones, not saying that that's going to happen, but that's an example. Again, I'm going to pick on Canva, not because this is going to happen, but because it's very popular. So with Canva, you can go and look at something like Design Wizard or Easel or Snappa or Visme. Now, understand, I'm just throwing these out there. I've played with all of these because I find them interesting. And there's no affiliate links, there's nothing. This is just ideas. So you can go to that, and because depending, maybe you're using Canva, for the templates, well, then you can go and look at these other tools and say, okay, these are sort of the same types of templates. This could possibly work for us. So go identify them, give them a try. Most of them have free trials, so you can kind of get a feel for it. But the important thing is to just know that they're there so that in an emergency, you can switch over to them. And because you've got your assets already, you could reload those and be back running much more quickly than if you were starting from scratch with all of this kind of stuff. Just another example, just for context for people to help them understand, is HubSpot. So HubSpot, a lot of people are using it for a lot of things. It's a full CRM, but let's say that, your main focus is the social media part of it, right? So you upload your social media posts and you schedule them to go out to the different places, and then you can, monitor the analytics and all that kind of stuff. It's a great tool. If it was to go away tomorrow, you want to be able to pick up and keep moving forward. So you can look at things like Later or Radar, which is RADAAR. And those are alternatives that will do the same types of things. Yes, you'll have to get used to a different user interface and all that kind of stuff, but at least it doesn't stop you, dead in your tracks because you've got these alternatives. Now, if you want to be really proactive about this, you can go identify your alternatives and go ahead and get them set up. Like set up your account, get some assets in there and, do some test drives with it, or have, whatever associate or employee, uses those so that they're already familiar, because again, that way you can turn on a dime if you need to. How do you find these things? How do you look? The first thing I recommend is that you ask your friends, your coworkers, people in your industry what they're using, right? Not in the emergency, but now. I mean, yes, in the emergency if you have to, but if you do it now you're prepared. So find out what they're using, find out what they recommend. Doesn't mean you have to drop what you're doing, because frankly, their tool could go dead tomorrow. So it's just, again, to have that list of, okay, here are alternatives we can look at if we need to. The other thing that you can do is you can do a search in your favorite search engine. So you type in the words alternative for and the name of your tool. and you will get a list back of alternatives. Because what happens is when somebody adds a feature, when somebody releases a new tool, and it gets attention, right? And people are using it, and people are talking about it. Either somebody's going to create something that's similar, or existing tools are going to see the functionality that's being used and add it to their tool. So if you do the search, you will go ahead and you will find those kinds of things. If you're finding this kind of thing helpful, if this is information you want, if you're interested in this kind of, tech for your business kind of thing, feel free to join the mailing list. That's how I let everybody know what the next topic's going to be, what other things are coming down the pike. So feel free, you can just sign up right there. And apologies to my mailing list. I know I didn't send out about this show because the puppy is hurt and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it. So there you go. You got that. Alrighty. The next level up, when you can't access your tool or your app. Now this is more specifically around if it's being blocked for some reason. However, that's not the only reason. So sometimes, as a company grows, who are providing these tools, sometimes, if something goes down in a certain area, they'll spin up an alternate location, but it may not be something that you can get to because of location issues or whatever. But most of the time, this is a way to get around a localized blockage, outage, or ban. And that is a VPN. So a VPN is a virtual private network. Most people who are using them today, for protection. It's a way for you to connect to the internet and do some surfing, and it gives you a little extra protection from the people who are trying to get into your system through the web. But one of the other features of it, in addition to that, like many of them offer that, is this idea of location vacations. So let's say that you're in Indiana, right, and you want to use something, but it's only available in the UK. So you could switch your location from Indiana to London, England, or whatever server you pick, and then all of a sudden it looks like you're a local and you're visiting there, and you can go ahead and you can access stuff. Sometimes that's all you need. Like sometimes that's the magic. Sometimes it's a little bit more complex because that's not the only thing necessarily. Like where you're coming from, according to the web traffic, sometimes that's not the only thing that they're using to filter, but it's a good place to start because sometimes it is all you need. It's like magic. You move on with your day. There are other things. So it could be that they are looking not only at your traffic, like where that traffic is coming from, but they may also look at your account and say, oh, okay, well, this person seems to be coming from London, England, but when we look at their account, they're really in Idaho, so nope, we're going to block them. The next level deep on that is the actual device itself. The device itself has that kind of information on it. So again, that may be another reason why it gets blocked. This is where I suggest you go into your drawer of old phones and pick one that's semi-recent and fire that up and use that, because you don't really want to be messing around with location and deep level functioning on your daily driver phone. But on an extra phone, go ahead, right? What have you got to lose? It's not a device you're using anyway. So you can go in and you can change your location. You can rebuild that phone, like restart it from the ground up as a new phone with a new email address that you fired up that says, your location is London, England, and you set everything up for London, England. And then when you do the other things of the VPN and all that, you will be London, England as far as they're concerned. None of this is foolproof. And like I said, there are levels, tiers, however you want to look at it. But it is another thing that can and does work. But none of the things I'm going to tell you, other than alternatives and backups, none of these things are going to work 100% of the time, but enough that it's worth the try. So you go ahead and you do that, and then that way it may give you another door in, assuming that it is a location-based type of blockage. Now, sorry, he made a noise. Okay. So that is a thing to know. When you go and look at VPNs, I strongly recommend, if you're going to be using a VPN for any reason, stay away from the free ones, because the reality is, if it's free, you're the product. So if you're going to use a VPN, go and find one that you pay for, because at least then you're their client, not their product, right? Your information is not the product. So let me just share a couple with you. There's a bunch of very good ones out there. I just want to, get the ideas out there. ExpressVPN is a very good way to go. They've got a lot of good information here. If you've never used one, they've got a lot of explanations. They have a lot of servers for you to choose from. Their support team is really helpful, and it works on pretty much everything. So you see here, Mac, Windows, iOS, Android, Linux, routers, Apple TV, Fire Stick, Android TV, Chrome extension, and you can, download it. So this is a good one. I'm not going to do a deep dive on this, but just want to let you know that it's out there. These links are in the description, but they are not affiliate links. The next one would be Surfshark. This is another one that I've used. I've recommended to other people. It's been very helpful. Same thing. Very good information on here. Very helpful support team. I think both of these are offering a free trial. Available for a lot of different devices. You can use it on your desktop, you can use it on your phone, so on and so forth. Now, the other part of this is that, and you do want it, you want it on your phone, you want it on your desktop, all that kind of good stuff, because that way you can get to the web tools as well as the apps. Another thing with location blocking, right? It's a game. Sometimes, in addition to all the things I just talked about, they will also block some of the bigger name VPNs because they know that that's where people are going to go. So in that case, you can look for less well-known ones, but make sure, they've been vetted by somebody and they're good. So another one to look at is one called award.vpn, which I did not fire up for you. I apologize. But it's the word award, award-vpn.com. People that over the past week or so that were having trouble and their VPNs, their bigger ones weren't working, they found this one and it worked because it wasn't on anybody's hit list. Now, again, this is a game of whack-a-mole. That will change. That will be, word will get out and they might add it to their list. But just know that just because one of the big ones didn't work doesn't mean that the VPN concept won't work. You might just need to find a lesser known, maybe a smaller company alternative. Okay? I know I'm powering through this really fast, but I have to give Murphy his medication soon. So my apologies. This is, I've already done this once, but evidently it failed everywhere because why not? That's the way my week's gone. All right. That's my problem, not yours. Let me go back to my notes. Notes, please. Okay. So I think we've pretty much covered the VPN concept. Yes? Yes. Okay. So now we're going to talk about something that is definitely a little bit more geeky, and I'm just going to ask you to stick with me and ride with this for a minute. The other thing that you can do on mobile devices is this thing called side loading. And all that means is that you are installing an application on your device, but you're not using one of the standard app stores. So you're not using the Google App Store, you're not using the Apple App Store, that type of thing. It is not an inherently nefarious or bad thing at all. It's how we in tech test things before they go to the app stores, right? Because you have to test things. You don't put things on the app store and then test them. So this is a way of, you can directly load the files onto your device, install them, and, test drive them like that. That's how the industry uses it. However, it's also a viable option for any of us out there as another way to get our apps. Now, this may feel fairly techie, and you are starting to skirt that edge there a little bit, but I promise you can do this. Just be selective, right? Don't get carried away with it, right? This is not something that you want to do necessarily all the time, but in specific cases, it is definitely a viable option. So it's okay to try. And again, if you're going to try it and you're at all concerned about it, use a backup device. Use a device that's not your daily driver, that you don't rely on every day, because that will remove some of that concern for you. Let me see. What else do I want to tell you about side loading before we go too far? Okay, right. So the option I'm going to give you for Android is pretty straightforward. And I did it myself last week. I had to help a couple of friends that needed to do it this week, and it was seamless. It worked fine. For things on the Apple side, it's a little bit murkier because Apple, you may have heard the term wall garden, right? They don't want you using anything from outside. They want you to use everything from their world. And there's pros and cons about that. However, the EU, love them, the EU has forced them to open that door a little bit. Because after all, you bought the device, you should get to make the choices, and also the whole thing around, digital privacy and all that, like the EU is all over that. So they have forced Apple into opening that door a little wider. However, of course, Apple's only done that in the EU, and they haven't done it for everybody else yet. But hopefully that is a sign of what's to come. So, for the EU folks, it should be pretty straightforward. You should just be able to go ahead and go to one of the sites that I'm going to mention and go ahead and do it. On the US side, it is a little bit more complicated. I will give you a resource that you can go and check out. And again, if you do it on a backup device, no harm, no foul. Anything else? I think that's good. Okay. So I'm going to start off with the Android folks because it is the more straightforward. And of course, I just closed the frickin' hang on. I just closed what I wanted to show you because that's how it's going today. One sec. Hopefully it's right there in my history. Yes, there we go. Love it when it works. Okay, so how does this work on the Android side? On Android, you're going to open up whatever browser you've got installed here, and you're going to go to apkmirror.com. Now, that link is in the description. And all APK is that's the file format for how applications get installed on Android. That's all that stands for. So let me just show you what it looks like because it helps to have seen it. So the idea is that you're going to open that up on your phone in the browser. And you're going to come here and you can just, scroll through if you're looking for something particular. Like the ones that are very popular at the moment are going to pop up at the top here. But you can also come up here and you can search for whatever it is. And then you're going to download that to your phone. Now, if you are comfortable with the technology and you know how to just install APKs yourself, you can just go ahead and go. The other benefit, though, is if you've not done that, there is an app that you can get. Similar name, so it'll line up nicely, the APK Mirror Installer Official. So once you've got the APK file, the installation file loaded on your phone, you're going to go ahead and install APK Mirror, which you can get from Google Play or you can get from apkmirror.com, whichever you prefer, whichever makes you more comfortable. And once you've got that on your phone, then you can go ahead and start the process of it will see the APK and it will install it for you and you'll be good to go. Now, this one, I've used this before in the past, but I looked into it again last week because somebody needed to install CapCut. So they saw CapCut wasn't working. They tried to do, their own, troubleshooting on it, which always is a good idea. But in the process of that, they deleted the app thinking that, I'll just go and reinstall it and maybe that'll fix it, because it does sometimes. They didn't realize that it wasn't going to be available for download. It wasn't just that they couldn't access it, it was that it was blocked. So we were talking, and I'm like, okay, well, let me see. So I tried it first. So I went here, I took an old phone of mine that I'd never had CapCut on, and I went to APK Mirror, I downloaded it, went through this process I just explained, and it worked fine. And once they did that and connected that with a VPN, I was able to access it, so I walked them through it. So just as an example of real world use. Now, that was several days ago. And as I was getting ready and, kicking around the idea of doing this as the show today, I went to double check because things change. Like, this is very much a fluid situation, and all of this stuff, it'll work, it won't work, so yeah, you double check. And so I went, and while CapCut was there the other day and worked fine, it wasn't there, was it yesterday? So I'm like, okay, I'll still do the show, still talk about it because it's a good example, right? So it was there, it was gone. Now today it's back again and it worked again. So if you go to one of these sites and it's not there and you can't get it, try again in a couple hours or try again in a couple of days and it may come back. Not fun, not optimal, but just so you know, and that's why we talked about having alternatives. Because if one doesn't work, then maybe the other one will. So stay on top of it and give it a try, but it did come back and it is working. I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you about that, right? Let me just check my notes. Okay. So let's talk Apple. So with Apple, like I said, it is more complex, but there are alternatives out there, and ways that you can do it. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the weeds on this, but if you want to do it on the Apple side and you're not in the EU, then there's an extra step of, yes, it's the same concept. You're going to go to a website, you're going to search for what you're looking for, you're going to download it in the Apple format. Which these sites are only doing Apple format, so it's not like you have to choose. These are Apple focused sites. But then you're going to have to build what they're calling a little server, put it on there, and then use that to install it to your phone. They explain it. They talk you through it, on the website and all that kind of stuff. But it is going to require a certain level of comfort. But again, if you're doing it on a backup device, hopefully that will remove some of the concern, and maybe you just be curious enough to want to give it a try. So let me show you one. There's a bunch of them out there. Do your due diligence, do some research, and make sure that it's not a bad site, because yes, the reason why it's safer to go to the App Store is, let me just actually come back here for a second. The reason it's safer to go to the App Store is because the App Stores do some vetting of the stuff, right? And side loading is more of a little bit of a Wild West kind of a thing. Like pretty much, anybody could put something out there saying, hey, we've got this and you can install it. So identify, a couple. I'm going to give you one to go look at sort of as a comparison point. But do some research on it, check to see if it's safe, make sure it's not known for loading bad stuff or letting bad stuff get loaded. Just, be cautious, but you don't have to be afraid. I hope that makes sense. All right, so here we go. So this one is called AltStore, so it's ALTSTORE.io. And again, they've got a lot of different things out there. They explain how to do it. It's also good, like if you are a developer, like you get stuff out there. If you can't get it into the store, you can do that. There's a user guide available. So there are options for non-EU Apple folks, but that is just an example to show you that it's out there. Alrighty, so that's where we're at with this. Again, the whole point of this is to say that you want to be prepared, because there's like I covered at the beginning, there's a dozen different reasons why you could end up not having access to your tool. So make sure that you are prepared so that you don't have to deal with the extra stress of that, in the moment. When it happens, it's stressful enough, but you're not going to waste your time and energy on like running around in circles, because you're going to have a plan in place, right? You're going to have your backup of your files. You're going to have alternatives you can look at. You can try doing these, side loads to get back to the tool that you want. You can use a VPN to see if that'll get you around it. So by having things to do, at least you're taking that time and energy and you're putting it towards something that's going to get you moving forward again, rather than just running around going, oh my God, I don't know what to do. That's really the whole point of this video, is be prepared, have a plan in place. Think of it like, hurricane preparation, right? Bad weather preparation, or having a jack and a spare tire in your car. It's the same thing, only for your business, right? Or your organization, or your life. Like, all this stuff applies to our lives too. But it's super critical, when it's got to do with your business and your organization type of thing. Not that lives are not critical. You get what I mean. So think about these things, go through this, come up with your punch list of, okay, we're going to do these things, and these are our alternative backups. And then that way, file it away wherever you file your other emergency information. And then should the time come, and the odds are it will, one way or another, somebody cuts a cable, a storm comes through, there's a hurricane, the service provider gets flooded, there's a fire, there's just so many ways in life that things can go wrong. So help yourself be prepared by just coming up with a plan. Feel free to reach out. If you have other questions, feel free to pop into the chat or into the comments. Other ideas that you've put in place that maybe would help somebody else. That's what this is all about, right? Helping each other out. Most people are good and want to see other people do well and want to be of assistance. So, feel free to do that. But just keep in mind that, there are things to be cautious about, especially when you start to talk about sideloading stuff. Okay? We will get through this one way or another. We are going to get through this. We're going to help each other as much as we possibly can. And taking the steps to be prepared, at least, will give you that I can sleep at night comfort of knowing that, while you can't control everything, at least you know what your alternatives are now, right? Okay, everybody, I'm going to go and give Murphy his medication. And I hope you all have a I just muted myself. So just, in case something does happen, or you something, I can't, do this, I will always post here to let you know what is going on, because things happen. I'm also on like Blue Sky and those kind of things. So you can hit up my link tree is listed here too. So you can always find out, if something's happened and whatever platform you're watching this on goes away tomorrow, you'll also know what your options are. Thank you all so much. Take care of each other. Talk to you soon. Bye.